Okay, so are you ready to dive into something really weird today?
Always up for a challenge. Hit me with it.
All right, so today we're looking into Droid Ken. It's a wild mix of website stuff, text messages, even like image descriptions.
Droid Ken. That's an interesting name to start with.
Right, and the name's just the tip of the iceberg.
So what's the story with this Droid Ken character?
Well, he seems to think he's some kind of being from the future, a droid, mixed up in future criminal justice and mental health stuff.
Okay, already sounds like we're in for a wild ride.
And he's not subtle about it. He straight up says, "My name is Ken Meyering. I'm a droid."
No introduction, no context, just boom, future droid. That's a statement for sure.
It's like he's trying to shock us on purpose. Like he wants to show us how strange the future's going to be.
It's definitely an attention-grabbing way to start a conversation. It makes you wonder, is he for real or is this some elaborate prank?
And it just gets weirder. He throws out all these terms: telepathy, mind control weapons, time-traveling alien worms, directed kinetic force fields. I mean, come on.
Yeah. It's a lot to process, right? Like trying to make sense of a dream. You're not sure what's real and what's not.
Exactly. So how do we even begin to make sense of this guy?
Well, I think the key is to look for patterns, recurring themes that might give us some clues about his worldview. One thing that jumps out is this idea of an optimal secular religion.
You mean like a new set of moral rules, but based on science instead of like old scriptures?
Right. He's talking about hacking happiness through brain chemistry, basically.
Hacking happiness.
Yeah, he's all about dopamine, serotonin, oxytocin, the feel-good chemicals.
So instead of trying to be good, we just got to figure out how to make our brains pump out more happy juice.
That's the gist of it, yeah. He even has a color coding system: green for good, red for bad, blue for serious. Like a mood ring for your morals.
A mood ring for your morals. That's one way to put it. But what about all the tech talk? Nanotech, quantum computing, even time travel. Is he for real?
It's a mix, really. Some of it, like nanotech, has a basis in real science. But then he veers off into, well, the more out there stuff. It's like he's blending science fiction with reality.
Yeah, it's hard to tell where the science ends and the fiction begins. And then there's the whole shield thing.
Ah, yes, the shield. That's where things take a very interesting turn.
He claims this group, these super intelligent beings, maybe aliens, maybe something else, are controlling him. It's like straight out of the Matrix.
And he sees himself as above governments and authorities, answerable only to this higher power. It really makes you question who's really in control and what are their intentions.
Yeah, and if he's right, what does that mean for the rest of us?
Exactly. Are we all just pawns in some cosmic game orchestrated by these unseen forces?
This is getting kind of creepy, to be honest.
No, right? But let's not get ahead of ourselves. Remember those images he keeps describing? The kaleidoscope, the African child's brain, the pyramid.
I was wondering about those. They seem random, but something tells me they're important.
I think they're symbolic, offering clues to how Droid Ken sees the world, and maybe even his own mental state. But unpacking those symbols, well, that's a challenge for another time.
All right, so we've got this web of tech, philosophy, and what might be alien puppet masters. Where do we even go from here?
I think the first step is to resist the urge to dismiss it all as nonsense. There's something compelling about Droid Ken, even if it's just the sheer audacity of his claims.
So we entertain the what-ifs. What if some of this is true? What if he really is a glimpse into our future?
Exactly. And I think that's what makes this deep dive so fascinating. It's not just about analyzing one man's strange ideas. It's about using those ideas as a springboard to explore the bigger questions about technology, consciousness, and the future of humanity.
It's like he's holding up a funhouse mirror to our own technological progress, showing us a distorted but strangely recognizable reflection of where we might be headed.
And that distorted reflection can be unsettling, even frightening. But it can also be a powerful catalyst for self-reflection and critical thinking. After all, if we don't like what we see in the mirror, maybe it's time to change our course.
So we're talking about a future run by algorithms, no more money, everyone gets what they need. Sounds kind of utopian, but also like maybe a little too controlled.
Yeah, it's a tricky balance, isn't it? I mean, the idea of using tech to solve problems like poverty and resource scarcity is appealing.
Right. Who wouldn't want that? But then there's that question of, like, what happens to individual choice in that kind of world?
Exactly. And that's where things get really interesting. Technology itself isn't good or bad, it's how we use it.
And who gets to make those decisions, right? Which brings us back to the shield and this whole idea of benevolent overlords. It's like he's saying we need this higher intelligence to guide us, to keep us from messing things up even more.
It's a classic sci-fi trope, right? Humanity needs saving from itself.
Yeah, but it's weird because he's both in awe of this shield, but also kind of controlled by them. Like he's both a spokesperson and a subject.
And that duality makes it even more challenging to interpret his message. Is he advocating for this kind of control or warning against it? Or maybe even he doesn't know for sure.
So how do we even begin to untangle it all? Maybe those images hold some clues. We've got the kaleidoscope, which we talked about earlier, the fragmented nature of reality in the digital age.
Or maybe it represents the infinite possibilities that technology unlocks. Like each turn of the kaleidoscope creates a new and intricate pattern.
Okay, I like that. A symbol of potential, not just fragmentation. But what about the African child's brain? That one feels especially loaded.
It does, doesn't it? And I think it's important to approach that image with sensitivity. On the one hand, it could represent untapped potential, a different way of seeing the world. On the other hand, it could be interpreted as exoticizing or othering a certain group of people, which is definitely something we want to avoid.
For sure. It's a good reminder that even when we're talking about a supposedly utopian future, we have to be mindful of whose voices are being heard and whose perspectives are being represented.
Exactly. And then we have the pyramid, of course.
Yeah, that one seems pretty straightforward, right? Hierarchies of power, the whole 9 yards.
Sure, the pyramid is often associated with power structures, but it can also symbolize ascension, the journey towards enlightenment.
Okay, so maybe it's not as clear-cut as I thought. It's like he's intentionally leaving things open to interpretation.
I think that's part of what makes this so fascinating. He's not giving us easy answers. He's forcing us to grapple with complex questions.
It's a little frustrating, I'm not going to lie. It's like he's dropping all these truth bombs, but not telling us where to find the detonator.
But maybe that's the point. Maybe the real deep dive here isn't about figuring out Droid Ken's deal, but about using his ideas as a springboard for our own explorations.
So instead of looking for answers in his material, we should be using it to ask better questions.
Exactly. What does it mean to be human in an age of increasingly powerful technology? How do we balance progress with ethics? Who gets to decide what the future looks like?
These are huge questions, questions that don't have easy answers.
And questions that we need to be asking ourselves now, before it's too late to change course.
It's almost like he's saying, hey, the future is being written right now, and it's up to us to decide what that story is going to be.
And I think that's a powerful message to leave people with. Don't just accept the future you're given, demand a better one.
Demand a better one, I like that. But how? Where do we even begin?
It starts with awareness, with educating ourselves about the technologies being developed and their potential impacts.
And not just blindly trusting the tech companies and governments to do the right thing, right?
Right. We need to be informed citizens, asking tough questions, demanding transparency and accountability.
And looking beyond the shiny promises of technological progress to see the potential downsides, the unintended consequences.
Exactly. Because every technology, no matter how beneficial it seems, comes with a trade-off. And it's our responsibility to understand those trade-offs and make informed decisions about the kind of future we want to create.
It's easy to get caught up in the fear, right? The robots are coming to take our jobs. The algorithms are going to control our lives.
Yeah.
But maybe there's another way to look at it.
Exactly. I mean, fear can be paralyzing. What we need is a sense of empowerment, of agency.
Like we're not just along for the ride. We actually have a say in how this all plays out.
Exactly. It's about shifting from a passive mindset to an active one. We're not just consumers of technology, we're citizens of the future. And that means taking responsibility for the world we're creating.
So less doom scrolling, more solution finding.
Exactly. Instead of freaking out about the latest dystopian headline, let's channel that energy into supporting the people and organizations that are working towards a more ethical and equitable technological future.
Okay, so concretely, what can we do? Where do we even start?
Well, for starters, we can educate ourselves. Read books, listen to podcasts. Hey, you're already doing that. Attend talks, follow experts in the field. The more we understand about these technologies, the better equipped we'll be to make informed decisions about them.
Knowledge is power, right?
Exactly. And we can use that knowledge to advocate for change. Support politicians who prioritize ethical tech policy, invest in companies that are developing technologies for good, donate to organizations that are working to bridge the digital divide. There are so many ways to get involved.
So it's not just about being a conscious consumer, it's about being a conscious citizen, using our voices and our wallets to support the kind of future we want to see.
Exactly. And don't underestimate the power of conversation. Talk to your friends, your family, your coworkers about these issues. The more we normalize these conversations, the more likely we are to make real progress.
So Droid Ken, the self-proclaimed droid from the future, might actually be doing us a favor by freaking us out a little. He's making us confront the weirdness, the uncertainty, and, the potential dangers of the technological path we're on.
And in doing so, he's reminding us that we have a choice. We can choose to be swept along by the tide, or we can choose to grab a paddle and start steering towards a future that we actually want to live in.
And that's a future worth fighting for. Thanks for diving deep with us today. We'll see you next time for another mind-bending exploration of the fringes of technology, culture, and the human experience.